Welcome back to another getting to know a fan and talking about their off season. I'm joined by probably the GOAT of AFL YouTube. I've got Caden McDonald. I'm excited to have you. How are you doing, Caden?
Pommy, thanks for having me on, mate. GOAT, that's a huge title, but I do appreciate it. We go a fair way back. I remember in the lockdown days when we were stuck at home, and I don't sort of recommend this habit to anyone, but I started really sinking the red wines and really getting into a couple of cans of confidence every Friday night, every Saturday night while watching the footy. And we play a lot of AFL Evolution 2 together. So that got me through lockdown, and I appreciate you for that.
Hey, mate, I was a bit like you, developed a penchant for alcohol and AFL evolution as well. So we do have history, we do. And I think guts fair, Caden. I mean, I think a lot of young fans who watch you, the reason that they do YouTube, you're the reason I do YouTube. You were the first YouTuber I saw. So now, mate, it's great to have you on, and we're excited about talking about them D's.
Yeah, I appreciate you getting me on. I'm pumped to sort of dissect what went right and what went wrong. It was a bit of a mixed bag for us this year where I sort of walked away and potentially had like the best year ever as a D supporter, except it just came to like a really fast sort of screeching halt. When the year before, when we won the flag, it was very stressful. Like we had the weight of 57 years without the premiership, and I'm sort of going, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And I didn't really enjoy that year. But going into this season, first 11 wins like that, like we didn't get out of third gear. Win 11, we're sitting up, high on the ladder. We drop a couple that it felt like we needed to lose. We then almost didn't get out of third gear. Like it got to sort of 3/4 of the way through the season, and we're still in this third gear. And then you start to question, like, are they carrying injuries? Do they have enough in the tank? Is the fitness the same as it was the year before? And I think it was a build-up of sort of everything. And it was almost like an 18-month campaign where there was no real preseason in between seasons. And it just got to them in the end, and it sort of just finished abruptly. I thought, a prelim was the bare minimum, and we didn't get there. So it's frustrating to think like we finished second and we had a great year, but it finished on a sour note. So I'm keen to see if they can be I can't get that word, a sustained successful team and be up for like a third year in a row. So I think it's a big challenge for the team this year.
What did it feel like as a fan? Like, obviously, usually this is a real successful season for a Demons fan. Like, finishing second, making a final, just losing in a real good final to Brisbane as well. It was a real highly contested one. How does it feel that obviously the expectations have changed? You came in as the reigning premiers, and obviously now the goalpost is massively removed. Is it hard to get into a mentality of maybe it's a disappointment not making a grand final, having been the premiers?
Oh yeah, it's weird on the mindset. I'm really good at sort of smelling the roses, and we dropped a couple through the mid stage of the season, and I was still like, man, like being 30 points up and being pipped by the Bulldogs at Marvel by 5 points when they're kicking them out there, like Ugur Koken's kicking them from the wing. I was leaving those games going, I used to see us win one game a year, two games a year, 2 games a season. So I do have that perspective, which is healthy and handy. But I was watching like some of the season highlights back maybe a couple of weeks ago, and it was like showing highlights from games that we lost, and we're like 30 points up. I think it was like against Collingwood on Queen's birthday, 30 points up. And I watched that and went, oh, we dropped that one. And then it's against Geelong at GMHBA, and we're about 5 points down with 5 minutes to go, and we lost that by about 5 goals. And um, it showed the two finals, the Swans and Brisbane. We're up by about 30 points in both those games, like on the scoreboard. And I'm watching going, oh, we lost that one. So it was almost like frustrating that in no game did I ever feel like we were not going to win. And that was weird. Going like, it's 3/4 time at every game this season, and we were up. And I was like, oh, we're going to win this. But then to not win those games is really frustrating, and it feels like an opportunity missed. And I don't want to be a team that floats around the top and doesn't capitalize. Like, I don't want to have this list in 15 years be sort of viewed like the Essendon team that won and didn't follow up. Like, I think this team has a couple of premierships in them, and to sort of know that they've missed a chance, it is a little bit frustrating. So, yeah, it's hard to balance. Like, great year, I was very content, but also like a missed opportunity, and I don't want to miss too many more. Otherwise, like, because team lists change completely in the space of 3 years. Like, people say, oh, Melbourne's list, they're so young, they'll be up there for 6 years. You can't bank on that. There's no guarantees in this sport. And if you start thinking like that, then who cares about next year? And like, you just got to grab your opportunity. So it was a little bit disappointing that we couldn't at least make a prelim last season. Like, and to go out to like Brisbane, and we had their number and had their measure, and I didn't really rate them. And some of their fans gave us a lot of stick online about, they were getting into us about Petty and Zorko. And I was like, yeah, really frustrated that that's how we went out. I thought it was a really undeserving way for that team to be kicked out of the finals. But that's footy, and that's what we love. And keen to see how they bounce back next year.
It is one of them frustrating things. I mean, from a lesser extent as a Carlton fan like myself, it was very weird getting to the bye and being 8-2, and my mindset changing of, you know what, we're actually a good side. Like I actually calculated it was like 2 seasons worth of wins I'd seen by the bye, and usually at this stage I'm checking the draft and going, okay, we're 2-8. Season's over, but who's coming through if we finish bottom? But what I found weird as a rival fan of yours was Melbourne suddenly had that target on their back. It was, you looked at that game, and I looked at your game, and usually Melbourne, I don't think anything of you. I'm just thinking that's a game, where's Richmond? But I looked at that and I was like, that's where we stack up against you guys. They're the best. How did it feel as a fan that probably you were a target in forums all of a sudden? People were talking about Melbourne. I remember covering the preseason game, which we beat you, and that got us really excited because we were like, we've beaten the reigning premiers. We're a real team. How did that feel for you, supporting a team that everyone suddenly wanted to beat?
It was honestly like draining and tiring. And I can't imagine how Collingwood and Richmond and Carlton supporters do it. It's just constantly like people dragging you down and dragging your team down and potting your team. And it's just so draining and frustrating where, like, I don't want to look at the forums. I don't want to look at Twitter. And then not only was there like opposition trying to target us and bring us down, the media had like a real agenda against the Melbourne Footy Club this year. They started saying Simon Goodwin was unprofessional, drinking beers. There's going to be big investigations into Goody, the investigations into the president. There's leaked text from the president from 2 years ago saying that they were going to sack Simon Goodwin. And the Melbourne Footy Club came out and said, yeah, like that wasn't true. And we went through a process at the end of 2020 and it set us up for 2021 and we won the flag. Like, why are we talking about the decision we didn't make when like who cares? It was just bizarre. It was crazy. And then like the Stephen May stuff happened. Like, I can't remember a year where we got so much bad PR, and some of it was like self-inflicted, like the Stephen May and Jakey Melksham stuff. But some of it was just like, target on the back. Let's bring down like that tall poppy. This team's been in the doldrums for so many years. They get 1 year of success. Let's drag them down. Like, what, you think you're so good, Melbourne? So, frustrating. It was weird. It was, bizarre seeing like on, any sort of like tipping. It was like the D's are overrated. Like we were undefeated by like round 11 and everyone was like, who have you played? And I was like, we've won 18 in a row. Like going back into last season, we played someone. Like, people were trying to say we just won the flag. Like, what do you mean, who have we played? We are that. Like, it was just, that sort of tall poppy, that dragging down was just crazy. And I'm sort of glad that, we finished second, had a good year, but we got bailed out pretty early in the finals, where I feel like people are going to be looking at the Richmond, Sydney, Collingwood, Geelong, even like Freo, even the Blues with expectations. I think we're sort of like fourth or fifth in people's mind of like expectations this year. So I'm keen to see how they handle it because that list is still juicy. I think that forward line, it's a method problem. It's not a personnel problem. Like I think we've seen teams win, premierships with one forward or like not even, you can sort of chuck anyone there, but it's a method. It's the way you bring it in. So I think across the board, it's still a handy team. And those youngsters like your Tom Sparrows were 20 when they won the flag. They're now 22, 23, getting into that prime time. Clayton Oliver's won 3 All-Australians, 2 Coaches Award, 4 Best and Fairest, and he's only like 25. Like he's only hitting the age where people start to do what he's already done. Petrarca's the same age, Brayshaw's the same age, Lever's the same age. Gawn plus Grunt, I'm optimistic. And yeah, I am bullish about how they'll go, but it is handy knowing that the expectations are a little bit less going into this season because it was really, really tiring, like just putting up with it. I don't know how the Blues fans do it. They cop it more than anyone.
You kind of get used to it. I'm more confused on Twitter when someone's nice to you. To be honest, that's what actually throws me. If you're slagging my team off, I can handle that. It's when someone compliments us, and I'm like, "Oh, that's weird." But I agree with you. From the outside in, it was weird. We talked off camera about Leicester City winning the Premier League, and I look at Melbourne as a similar story. It's the fairy tale, isn't it? They've had years of hurt, and then they finally do it. And the British media really loved Leicester for a whole year. No one expected them to retain it, but the media really got behind them as these are a wonderful story. And it did feel like the AFL media really hated Melbourne. They begrudged one of the big four didn't win the flag. And it felt like there was a campaign because I remember the May story. I was reading it and thinking, this probably happens every time teams drink. Why am I hearing about it?
Yeah. Well, and it was there was a week-long thing about that incident. And I hate that incident happened. I love hearing when they started putting the team first and the demon spirit and the selflessness. And then to hear that, what happened at the pub or, the restaurant that they were at, it was just really disappointing. And it was sort of frustrating because it was that's not what you guys have talked about standing for. And if you go down that rabbit hole of potting players for not winning the flag, and we're not going to be a sustained successful side. You got to really practice what you preach. And they preached changing the language around the footy club and changing the mindset and the attitudes. Instead of walking in and one example that the Melbourne Footy Club used was they used to walk in, and because they're blokey blokes and they're bantery and they're lads, and someone would say, "Oh, Jake Lever, unbelievable game, had 8 intercept marks." And then the sort of joke that you do with your mates is well, it wasn't 10, or oh yeah, but you butchered all your kicks, and you sort of bring your mate down. And Gorney always speaks about why? Jake Lever's up here. He's just had 8 intercept marks. He had a ripping game, and someone just potted him and brought him down to earth. And if we can create an environment where everyone's encouraging, it's going to be so beneficial for our footy club. And I think Harry Mackay spoke about it on Dylan and Friends about how there was almost a stigma around doing the extras around the Carlton Footy Club. If you were after training pumping the weights, someone would walk in and sort of go, "Oh, okay, hero. Oh, you're doing extras, aren't you? Oh, you think you're better than us." But now Harry Mackay talks about how the culture with that footy club, it's so encouraged. And you can see the people that they brought in. I think a Sam Walsh sort of seems like that sort of figurehead of extras and leadership from a young age and coming in and sort of taking control of your own career. So yeah, when that happened and the Stephen May thing happened, it was a little bit frustrating, but I think it's a reminder, they did climb the mountain. They did, conquer everything that they wanted to achieve. And now it's about learning how to be a sustained, successful team. We've never done that. So there are going to be sort of bumps in the road. But yeah, that sort of attacking from the media started in preseason. It was the Simon Goodwin having a beer thing. which then went into Simon Goodwin almost got sacked in 2020. Here's explosive emails. And then it went into like the attacks on the president. And it just, it was horrible. It's a horrible thing to read, like breaking news, Melbourne Footy Club, because when I used to read that, it was Mark Neeld sacked and Cameron Schwab's left and Dean Bailey's sacked and whatnot. So like I'm used to like just reading that stuff and going, oh, I'm so embarrassed. I'm so embarrassed to be a supporter. I'm embarrassed by the fragility of this footy club. And for like an 18-month period there, I was so proud. And like that was their tagline, proud to belong. And I was sort of like, oh, I can wear my Demon shorts to the gym and not feel like a loser, or like the kids can wear their Demon kits to school footy day or Auskick and not be potted, for barracking for a crap side. So we were proud to belong, and we still are. And I think they're still building it. But yeah, like it's crazy when the media get like, I don't know, like they can find a target and they can really target it. And like, I just can't, like, I couldn't imagine being a Collingwood fan, or like, I think there's someone who just like anything Collingwood related, it just gets blown out of proportion. So yeah, it's something that I hope gets tidied up like a little bit, because like I understand stories need to come out and it happens to every club. So I'm not really trying to complain, but I love celebrating the game and like getting behind teams and getting behind players. And that's why I like doing fun YouTube comedic stuff, because I think we need a little bit more of that.
But first,
an ad.
Sponsors of today's channel are Manscaped, the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Their products are precision engineered to look after the most important jewels in your house, your family jewels. Manscaped's performance package is an absolute game changer, and it's the ultimate in men's hygiene. Join over 7 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped, and I've got an exclusive offer for you. 20% off, free worldwide shipping if you use the code POMMY at manscaped.com at the checkout. And if my maths is correct, that's around 14 million balls that they service. Time to throw out your razor. Performance Package 4.0 is, like I say, a game changer. You want to take your on-ball game to the next level, Manscaped will help you out. And I've got to say, the boxers that with their anti-chafing technology are the comfiest things I have put my pert little behind on. Click the link, get 20% off and free shipping with code POMMY, that's POMMY, at manscaped.com. 20% off, free shipping anywhere in the world. Unlock your confidence and use the right tools from the job and take your on-ball game to the next level.
Back to you in the studio.
We definitely do. I think it's a game that's so serious but so irrelevant as well. Do you know what I mean? It's amazing how this can ruin your day, can't it? Like I go to work on a Monday and I remember my staff telling me that the first half of the season I'm all excited and happy, and people are wanting sick days, and I'm like, yeah, take it off, mate. Take 2, have 3 days. And then, the second half happened, and Carlton started win, lose, and I'm a little bit more angry and sad, and not the same.
Get to work.
Yeah, it's one of them things, isn't it? It's such a stupid game, but it means so much, doesn't it? Off season, it's easy to say it's a stupid game, but round 12. Someone says it's a stupid game, I'm snapping.
I'm frustrated that the D's have finally climbed up the ladder. It took us 12, 13, 14 years. We're now a top 4 staple. Hopefully next year we can do it again. And I just hate that it's so equal, so even. It's just annoying. I want to go back to the years where the bottom 4 all win 2 games each and the top 4 all lose maybe 1 or 2 games each. But I don't going into the last 5 games, we could have finished 10th or 1st. It was just crazy. And then we needed to beat obviously the Blues and Brisbane. But because we dropped games against the Pies and all these teams coming into it, I've got screenshots of the Herald Sun and whatnot, tipping the D's to finish 6th. And then we obviously, thank goodness for Cosy Pickett, kicks the goal to pinch it against the Blues. And then we obliterate Brisbane. And we finished 2nd. So it was just no place was sort of secure the whole season, which is good for footy. But, I want to get back to the days where the top four were miles ahead of everyone else.
I agree with you. It's a weird year, wasn't it? Because like North Melbourne, they nearly beat Collingwood when no one could beat Collingwood. And then, do you know what I mean?
They nearly beat Sydney at the SCG. They beat Richmond. Weird.
It's a bizarre competition, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you can be that close. And I remember us playing you, and Cozzy Pickett broke my heart. God bless him. I mean, he's got balls of steel, though. I'll give him that. Like, big brave boy. But it's a weird season here because it was hard to believe, like, just playing Carlton, like how far behind we were of you to be that close as well. And usually you celebrate that as a Carlton fan, but I agree.
Yeah.
The expectation changes so quickly, doesn't it? Because like now Carlton are talking about top four and we haven't even made finals. And it's believable because there's about 14 sides who could be in the 8 next year.
Yeah, well, I think the Blues there's always a team to do it. And it's almost a little bit too obvious, but I think 3 years ago, people were talking about Carlton being a top 8 side. And I remember going, I think Sam Walsh was 18 or 19. And I know that Wiedering was sort of like older, and people were sort of banking on that Wiedering wave to be the list to take you into the top 8. And I remember going, then they're not done yet with developing. Like Sam Walsh and that crop had only just got to the club. And I remember thinking like it might take them sort of 3 or 4 years with Sam Walsh to take them into the top 8. And I think it was the COVID year where everyone got excited because it was a young list with like reduced time in games. Like you guys were in games for longer and you started banking them. And I think you just missed the 8 in that season, but that put all the expectation in 2021 and 2022. But I think now it's like you're definitely in the top 8. And I think there's no reason why you can't make the top 4. Like that core is like so powerful. And now I think you've just plugged every sort of need that you've been after. So yeah, I'm really bullish about the Blues. And yeah, the expectations have changed. Like you don't go into Carlton versus Richmond going, oh, geez, that's frustrating. We'll get to round 2 and see how we go. It's like, no, you got to win this one because you probably should. And then the next week you might get like an Adelaide at Marvel. And then all of a sudden, like you look at your front half of the season and instead of, looking at the draft by round 10, it's like, oh, sweet. Like we're 3 games away from locking in the 8, let alone like top 4 and whatnot. So yeah, I think it's an exciting time. And knowing that I think Richmond will be up there and I love them. Like I grew up in Geelong, so many Geelong supporters. My best mate was a Richmond supporter. They didn't win a flag for 30 years. So when he saw success in 17, 19 and 20, I was so stoked for him because I was like, it's not Geelong. Like they're beating Geelong in flags, like in grannies. Like this is the best. Dusty Martin's cool. So I like the Tigers and I like that they're potentially up there. I like that the Blues are potentially up there. So it's almost like Melbourne, Richmond, Carlton, Brisbane, like top 4. It's a top 4 with like teams and colours and like personnel and stuff that we've never seen. And I love like that freshness, but let alone like they're massive clubs like Richmond. Well, not Richmond. Collingwood could be up there as well. So the top 4 could be like Melbourne, Collingwood, Carlton. Like you just don't know. So that makes finals next year so exciting.
It's tough. I've just recorded my prediction video, and it is tough. It's hard to settle on 8 teams, isn't it? And it's one of them videos. I know you do them as well. That you probably record, and you're going to get hate in the comments because you've got to let one team down, and there's a good argument for any team to be in the 8.
Well, like nothing's crazy. Like if someone said, "Oh, Adelaide finished 6th," it's like it could have. Like who knows? I'm waiting for Gold Coast to have their sort of jump up. I think they're close to being a top 8 side. When's that going to happen? When's like Gold Coast, Adelaide, and the Hawthorns going to make that like next leap? But yeah, with predictions, I'm all at sea. Like I am not an expert. I don't. Maybe my football knowledge just isn't up to scratch. Like I was never good at tipping. I was never good at Super Coach, and my season predictions are always horrific. Like I saw what Collingwood did in 2021, I think they finished like maybe second last or something. And I thought, well, they're terrible. So I tipped them for the wooden spoon and they finished in the top 4. So it's almost comical at this point, my season predictions.
I think I had Collingwood 16th last year, and the amount of hate that.
Oh, yeah.
It was one of them commenting videos where every time Collingwood win, I could guarantee someone would go back to that video and go, Pommy, how's 16th Collingwood going? And I'm like, oh, come on.
Who would have thought?
Mate, they did splendid. But I mean, obviously, we talked about, like, obviously, you've gone through a rebuild, Melbourne, and it's been a long documented rebuild. And I've watched it with interest because it's starting to bear fruits. And this off-season, we've started to see a really exciting Melbourne. They're not developing youngsters. They've gone out and acquired ready-made talent, which is, I think, where a team like myself, Carlton, we're hoping to be in that situation where the draft is secondary and it's now acquiring complementary pieces. What did you want, first of all, in the trade period to get you back to the flag? And how did you view the D's trade period?
First of all, talking about tall poppy syndrome and frustrating people on Twitter and just nuffies, Luke Jackson is a generational talent. Like, I can't explain the things that he's done on the footy field at that age, at that size. It's absurd. And people always, reference the grand final, but he can take a hanger on someone's head, but he also, like, around the stoppage, he bounces around like pendles. Like, obviously not to that degree, but the cool and calmness that he can, like, do a little pirouette and hit a handball, it's ridiculous. And we got him with pick 3, generational talent. We could have taken Hayden Young at that pick, and it was sort of absurd to take a ruckman in the top 10, let alone the top 5, let alone pick 3. Hayden Young was that half-backer that we were crying out for. So it was just frustrating that we didn't go with the Victorian because we went with the generational talent. And then he left after 3 years. And if we had won the granny this year, it would have been like, mate, shake hands. Thanks for everything. But because we didn't, it just felt like we didn't quite get what we wanted out of him because he hasn't even developed into what he's going to become. So to lose Luke Jackson was heartbreaking. And then for Freo to sort of be really stubborn in the draft or in the trade, that was frustrating. I think the D, I was just pretty upset that he went for like pick 13 or like 2 pick 13 or whatever it was. It was quite annoying. So what I wanted us to shuffle up into the top 5 and pinch a Cadman because he was tipped to go around 6, 7, 8. And I thought we could get something around that for Luke Jackson. And then I was like, oh, that's amazing. Like Jacob Van Rooyen and Aaron Cadman in the forward line for the next 10 years is delicious. Jacob Van Rooyen is a WA talent, absolute lump of a lad, played VFL all year. And I like that we didn't debut him because I feel like just that year in the VFL was so helpful for him. Everyone sort of expects him to be our full forward next year, which is quite funny, like just some random kid that no one knows. But everyone's pretty bullish that he'll pinch a spot off either Benny Brown or Tommy Mack. So to sort of bleed in like an Aaron Cadman got me really excited. Anyway, that didn't come to fruition, and Cadman went from like a pick 7 or 8 to pick 1, which is absolutely crazy. Like he's a gun in the making. Look, I'm pretty happy we got Jefferson around like pick 14 or 15, who's a key forward, and he's a different type to Van Rooyen. So we've almost got like that lump of a lad, proper full forward in Van Rooyen, and then we've almost got that Hipwood, Daniher, wiry, can take a hang, a little bit taller in Jefferson. So I like that they're sort of contrasting. So I was pretty content with that. And yeah, like Grundy to plug the hole of Jackson is just crazy. Like I think Luke Jackson's going to be a generational talent and he's a phenomenon and I love him, and what he's going to do against us in the next 10 years is going to be tough to swallow. But to sort of turn that into Brodie Grundy leaves me pretty content. Like I feel like in the immediate future, I don't know if immediate future makes sense. In the immediate time, I think Brodie Grundy for Luke Jackson going into 2023 is almost a win. And to get him for cheap off the back of losing Jackson for cheap sort of all worked out. And then, yeah, to plug that extra tall hole with Shaki was handy. And I think Lockie Hunter, he wasn't delisted? No, he's just sort of like, wasn't delisted, was just sort of given away for a packet of chips. I think what we did with Ed Langdon, who wasn't a notable name, gave him a role on the wing, and to have like someone that's really silky on the other wing to then be able to connect our mids to our forward line, because that's obviously the talking point was we'd just go long to the pocket and we'd have no one to kick to. So now we've got, maybe Jefferson might take a couple of years, but we've got Van Rooyen, Tommy Mack will be back, Gawn could spend more time forward potentially, and now we've got Lockie Hunter that can dart him in and actually hit people on the chest. I think we're almost better. We're a better team next year, which is, fingers crossed. But yeah, I think we almost are. So that's super exciting. I've got a lot of faith in Tim Lamb and Jason Taylor and the team. Like for years, we'd get like your Jimmy Tompkins in, and all of a sudden he's just forgot how to kick. He was dominating Sandful, went pick 5, and just couldn't find the footy in the AFL. Or we'd bring in all these talent for years and years and years, and they'd get chewed up and spat out. Where like I wouldn't remember our rookies' names. Like I'm a massive diehard D's fan, but we'd get people in that would just be delisted the year later. Now I learn our rookies, like the names of our rookies, because they become 100-game players for us. Like James Harms and Jaden Hutt get brought in and they become like, it's just crazy. Like the development and the way these guys have been able to hit the mark with the draft and the trade. So I have full faith in what they do and what they've done. So and that's another thing of like being proud to belong and being proud to be a Melbourne supporter. It's like, yeah, we're not, when you see the drafts redone from the last few years, it'll be like Clayton Oliver's draft and he was like pick 6 or whatever. And he's like, when it's redrafted, he's at the top. And then you see Petrarca's year and he was pick 2, but it's like he's at the top, and Paddy McCarthy. Yeah. So we've sort of nailed a few of those drafts now where like I have full faith in what they do.
I think you've nailed it. I really enjoyed your trade period. I mean, I agree with you. I said it in my trade review. I thought losing Jackson long term might be an L, but I think in the next 2 or 3 years, I think Grundy is a huge dub. Like, I think you'll look back at it, and I think that's one of them ones that you'll look back, and it depends what you do in the next 3 years. If you go out and take the best ruckman next year, I think it could be a huge dub, because I think Grundy is a powerhouse, and if you find a ruckman to replace him in 3 years, you did do it though. I was really bullish on Will Verrill. You rookied him, and you talked about your penchant for rookies. And he's that cheeky ruck forward, very similar Jackson type player that is mobile. I wouldn't be surprised to see in 2 years Will Verrill suddenly jump up and everyone go, God, the D's are geniuses. They got rid of Jackson and they replaced him in the rookie draft.
Well, we also got a Category B rookie called Kai something, who's 206 centimeters, played basketball. We signed him as well. And look, it could be one of these things where no one really knows his name. He gets chewed up and spat out. Category B rookie's a bit of a free hit anyway. But it could be one of these things where, I don't know about this kid, but he's a massive size and he's an athlete. And the development that our club has now, like we would get access to the best talent in the draft pool and turn them into spuds. And that's what we did for like a 5, 6, 7 year patch. And now we get like Ed Langdon can't kick, and now his skills are like really, really good. Like just the development of the footy clubs, it's incredible. And what they do down there is amazing. And that's why like I've got a lot of faith in what we do. But what I was going on about at the start of my Luke Jackson rant was the tall poppy syndrome and the attack on people and players that I see in the industry. Like Luke Jackson is like 20, 21 and jumps on people's heads, and his ground ball game is so silky and his skills are amazing. And he's like pushed the best ruckman in the comp to be a 50% ruckman for our team. And he's just ridiculous and absurd. And he had a bit of a average 4-month patch from halfway through this year into the back end of the year. And when there was sort of those trade rumors about Freo coming for Luke Jackson, all of a sudden the Twitter experts labeled Luke Jackson as shit and overrated and a spud. And why would they pay that much for? And it's just funny. Like 6 months earlier, Luke Jackson, generational talent. Oh, he's a generational talent. Let's get him to Freo and we'll, and then all of a sudden, Luke Jackson's overrated. He's like, I just couldn't believe how people flipped on a dime over like a 20-year-old kid. Like that really, really did frustrate me. 1 second he's a phenomenon and the next he's overrated. He's shit. He's not that good. So yeah, that's just my little piece on the Twitter sphere when it comes to AFL and how negative it can be.
It wasn't just Twitter sphere as well. It was something I noticed with the AFL pundits as well. Like a year ago, they were talking about a lot of teams will regret not taking Jackson at 1 with the form he showed in your flag winner, and thinking that a lot of these teams will be like, God, we should have taken him when we had him. And then they were coming out and saying, oh, you can't stand in his way. And that's what I always find interesting about the media. A lot of teams should ask for a lot of money. Essendon get away with this, I think. The media love it when Essendon value their players as 8 first. But I felt a lot of people were saying in the media, oh, the D's are dragging their heels with Jackson. He wants to go home. Just let him go. Do you know what I mean? For anything. And it's weird how the media treat different sides in these trade tables.
Yeah, and in my head, like we've been awful for 25 years and good for a year and a half. And I remember we had an NGA player, Mac Andrew, who was we had developed since he was like 14 or something. And he trained at Casey and trained at the club. And he's a Dandenong Stingrays boy. And he was like, he's 200 centimeters and he's like a ruck backman or whatnot. So we had this NGA kid coming through and they changed the rules. So Jamari Ugur was NGA and linked to Western Bulldogs, went pick 1 in a draft where, Adelaide had been struggling and probably wanted Jamar, or like any team would have wanted him. But the Western Bulldogs, who played in a grand final that year and like the year after they got him and whatnot, and have been a finals team and been a top 4 team and whatever, got pick 1. So it was just a bit crazy. So the AFL changed the rule where you can't pick them if they're in the top 20, and now they've changed it to the top 40. So it was frustrating. Mac Andrews come through. We've developed him. He's this unbelievable prospect. But because he had worked his way into the top 10, we couldn't have access to him. And I remember saying this to one of my friends. I was like, I'm so frustrated that, we miss out on Mac Andrew. We've developed him and he's going to go into the top 10. I think he went pick 8 to Gold Coast. And my friend goes, I'm pretty content with the Premier not getting a top 10 pick after they just won the flag. And that's what it's sort of like this year. It's like, oh, Melbourne, just let Luke Jackson go. And everyone's saying, oh, the D's, the reigning premiers, who cares if you lose Luke Jackson? But in my head, I'm like, we've been awful for 25 years of my life. We've been good for 18 months. I want Mac Andrew. I think we need to keep Luke Jackson. Like, I'm not quite frivolous with our talent. Like, I think we need to, So that's why it's, a funny little mindset when people sort of go, just let him go. You're dragging your heels. When in my head, it's like, for sustained success, we've got to keep people like Luke Jackson.
Oh, it's tough, and we're seeing it's becoming more of a NBA style league, isn't it? We're starting to see player movement happen en masse. Like when I first came here, you'd maybe have 6 or 7 trades a year. Like now it's becoming a big trade thing, and players are having more power. Like Luke Jackson, he was quite open. He wanted to move to WA, and there's an inevitability, isn't there, nowadays in the AFL that if a interstate player says they want to go home, the AFL aren't ruthless. They accommodate it. And it was a weird one because I didn't think, when you look at trade value, I thought you ripped Collingwood off
100%.
Grundy. Like when I saw what they were asking for, I was like, Collingwood are mental. He's still one of the best ruckmen in the world, even though he's had that injury. But the media did push, Oh, Grundy's knees. Oh, this could be it. He could retire. And I enjoyed your trade there. I thought you got a real good value for him.
Yeah, I can understand every Collingwood supporter being frustrated with that. I think it was it was really important to get him off the books money wise for like the Degoe deal and what I'm sort of speaking out my ass here. I don't actually know, but there was a little bit of like, it's actually really important for them to get him off the books. And like, I think they're paying some of his salary and they got rid of him just for like a pick 30. Like it was so like, from like a Collingwood fan's point of view, it's like, as an outsider, it looks like they've done it for nothing. But I think Collingwood win in a way, and like I think Melbourne just to like, oh great, we'll take him. Melbourne win in a way. Like it just reminds me, like, I think Melbourne will win that Luke Jackson left. I think the draft picks and what we do with them and the future first rounders and whatnot. I think like in the end, Freo will win and Melbourne will win. And it, when Collingwood got rid of Jaden Stevenson and Adam Treloar, and they got them off the books. And at that time, you're going, oh, God, Collingwood, like they've lost the plot. They're going to be terrible for years. And what they did with that, they became a top 4 team in 18 months. And, North sort of won with Jaden Stevenson. I think he'll come good. And the Dogs won with Adam Treloar. And Collingwood won, like when you look back on that trade. So, Brodie Grundy, holy hat. I think... and people will come back to this in 12 months, I think you're going to see Clayton Oliver and Christian Petrarca have their best seasons with Brodie Grundy as their ruck. We aren't as good in clearances as we should be. Max Gawn is an amazing ruckman around the ground. His intercepting across the half back is second to none and phenomenal. And because we had a bit of a hole with our forward line and we sent Max forward this year, our back line suffered a little bit because we didn't have Max just floating across and taking intercept marks in defense. But I think, if you watch any Melbourne game, we don't just get like clear, clean, hit out to advantage and have like Petrarca run out. It sort of hits the deck first. Viney rolls his sleeves up, goes to work, gets it out, and then they're away. So I'm keen because Brodie Grundy's ruck work and his tap work is phenomenal. So I think the D's midfield goes to another level with him giving them first use and giving him their that service. So yeah, I think it could really like lift our midfield by 20% because we don't get the numbers and we don't get the looks that we should with that personnel in the midfield.
I was bullish. I think he's the signing of the year. I think he strikes me as the guy that needed a change of scenery as well. I think he's a very intelligent man, and you talked about that togetherness you guys have. I think he brings something in the dressing room as well. You've only got to watch his Insta. He's a thinker. He's an intelligent young man.
He's a ripper.
I'm super excited just to watch these games because I think Gawn and Grundy, we've all had them in our Supercoach team for 10 years. We get to finally see them on grass, and I think that it's scary on paper. I think that must affect teams thinking, Jesus, Viney, Oliver, Petrarca, and Gawn and Grundy. That must intimidate you. It has to.
Yeah, that's absurd. It's OP, like to use the sort of PlayStation wording of like overpowered, like it is. It's ridiculous. And I don't like giving much thought space to some of the critiques, but it is funny when you get the journalists going, oh, how's this going to work? I think they'll make it work. I think they'll make it work. Grundy kicks snags as well. And that's something Gawn doesn't do as often. So I would love for Grundy to be that ruckman. And I don't like this, having like Gawn forward. I like him off the back line. So I don't know how they work it, but I'm excited. And I think, Lockie Hunter on another wing, him and Spargo being the connectors and actually being able to hit up our forwards with a bit of method, having the brute of Van Rooyen deep inside the 50 with Tommy Mack back fully fit. And I think, and I might be talking out my ass here, But I've seen on Twitter, a place that I've openly despised, and but a little bit of a nugget here. I did see on Twitter that apparently Cozzy Pickett's training with the mids. So that's even like another look that we haven't quite seen yet. I think he's got that in his kit bag. And in 2021, he used to start every first bounce in the midfield. And then after that, he'd just go forward. But it was like quite cool to see, like, because he's in there, a little bit of spark, a little bit of speed. I think if he rotates through there, it's another player and another sort of thing that we haven't seen yet. And yeah, I don't know. I'm excited, and I'm quite bullish about what this team could achieve.
I agree. I think Melbourne, like you said it at the start of the show, no one talks about them. And I think your acquisitions, it's very dangerous not to talk about. I think a few teams will underestimate you going into the first couple of weeks of the season. They'll be like, it's just Melbourne. And I think if that Grundy combination fires, it could be lights out. I don't see how any team can compete with that, to be honest. We've seen how dominant Ruckman are and influential in today's game. You've got two of the best. Do you know what I mean? You've got two of the best. Like, you won't want to be arresting Ruckman going up against Grundy, would you? So,
yeah. Well, yeah, it's it's exciting. And I think don't count out the factor of how much that loss stung. Like, I think, we were sort of in third gear and we couldn't get out of it. And we'd win games off the back of a 15-minute blitz. And that was about it. Like, we'd sort of struggle in the first term, kick 7 goals in the second, put up, just sort of rock up in the second half and hold on. And then when, like, your Collingwoods ran us down, Freo ran us down, Sydney ran us down, Geelong ran us down, it was frustrating because it was sort of like, well, we only rocked up for 15 minutes and we lost by 2 goals. That's what happened in the finals. Like, Sydney grounded us down and finally got ahead. When Collingwood beat us in like round 20 or whatnot, Friday night football, we're up by like 20 to 30 points, but they just kept coming. Well, they did that to a lot of teams, to be fair, but they won by a kick. So I think, knowing that we were in every game last year and there was obviously like a fatigue and a bit of a burnout in and amongst the group, I think losing those 2 games in the way we did to end the season would light a massive fire up a few of them, knowing that like nothing, you can't take anything for granted. Nothing is given to you and you have to go out and earn it. And I think this team is really good at being the hunters. So I think that's like exciting going into next year.
And talking about next year, what are you expecting from your Mighty D's? What is Caden hoping? We have this conversation next year. Where are you seeing Melbourne's year?
I want to learn off like the Swans and the Cats, and I want to build into a season. Every year, Geelong are like 3-3, and they're 4-3, and I lick my lips and put a line through them, and then all of a sudden they always finish top 2. The way we've attacked years is we bank wins early, and then I don't know if we do that pre-season in the middle of the year that every club seems to do, or I don't know what happens in the middle of seasons, but we have this sort of lull and then we build again, and we couldn't quite get it going again in 2022, but we did it perfectly in 2021. So I almost don't want us to be 11-0, 10-0 next year. I sort of want us to build into a season as professionally and with a purpose, the way the Cats and the Swans and the Hawks and the Tigers used to do it. So I'd like, we tried to play the same 22 as well every week. I'd like to utilize the 35 best players in the club. I want to like just really do it professionally with like a real purpose, like give everyone a bit of a taste, freshen up the list, work it all out. And then by around like 20, 21, 22, it's like all set in stone and we're ready to really have a big crack at it. But I think a prelim is another bare minimum, which is so weird. They're so hard to get to, but yeah, a prelim's a bare minimum, if not a grand final. And top 3. I think top 2 is pretty tough, but yeah, top 3 would be handy. Top 4, I guess I should have just said. But yeah, to get that second chance, to be a top 4 team 3 years in a row, and to go deep into finals again, whether or not it does bring the ultimate, I think just would be a massive feather in our cap. To do it 3 years in a row would be unbelievable, because even like Brisbane in the last few years have been such a good team, but they haven't been top 4 every year. I think, or maybe they did. Oh no, I think they have. They snuck in, and they kicked the Bulldogs out. But even like the Bulldogs have been a great team, but it's so hard to be a top 4 team multiple years. So to do it again next year would be super exciting. So yeah, like prelim, bare minimum, and whatever else we get, I'll absolutely take.
You mentioned Geelong. Geelong are the most annoying side of the AFL. Like they wind me up.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, but they're just so consistent, aren't they? And you kind of know they're going to finish top 2. Yeah, like there's a part of you that wants them not to. I've been there 3-3, and I'm like, yeah, this is their year. They drop out, age catches up, but then 10 weeks later they're 10-3, and you're like, oh
yeah,
oh, how did that happen?
Yeah.
Do you? As a Melbourne fan, you're getting to that age where your list is peak age. Are you hoping to do a Geelong and recycle the players and try and stay at that core age? Or are you expecting a micro rebuild like we've seen Collingwood do and refresh the list? What are you hoping as a fan as you get to the back end of your glory years?
Yeah, it's a good question, because Geelong were always the bridesmaid and never the bride. And there was a lot of frustration from Geelong fans, but I'd almost take that. Like 10 years of prelims and a couple of grand finals, I would almost take that. I honestly think, though, I think the Richmond way to do it is how I'd like to. Like, have a full-blown assault for 5 years, drop out for 1, and then you're back. Like, they've refreshed the list. They've got Durando and Hopper. Gibkiss is, coming on really, really quickly with his development. I like the way the Tigers went about it, even though they missed finals for 1 year. So, either are great, and they've had amazing amounts of success. But I want the Ds to really throw everything at it with an eye to the future. Like, you don't want to just cook your club and be down in the doldrums for 10 years. But I don't want to do a West Coast, to be honest, because I think they're going to be stuck in the mud for a long time. And that's because they had they went all in. They went all in with the Tim Kelly deal to try and pinch another grand final, and it didn't quite work out, and that's fine. Like, that's the risk you take. But yeah, the way Richmond have done it and the way Geelong have done it has been unbelievable.
Mate, I love it. And on behalf of our fan base, we love you, Caden. You, like I said, you are the GOAT of YouTube, in my opinion. But everyone, go and sub if you haven't. If you haven't, what the hell have you been doing with your YouTube journey? You should all be subbed to Caden. But his links are in there. Does great content. I love the comedic approach, and the podcast as well is absolutely sick. But thank you so much, Caden, for coming to join us today. And we wish you the best of luck with the Demons in 2023.
Thank you, Pommy. I really appreciate you getting me on. Shout out to the bloke on Twitter who recommended me to hop on the pod as well. And yeah, I love what you and the boys at Blue Broad have been doing for the last few years. Definitely one of the benchmarks in like the fan-made content and the fan-made channels. And I wish you boys all the luck for next season, and I can't wait to collaborate again. Thanks for having me on, mate.
Mate, can't wait, my friend. Can't wait. Well, thank you very much, mate, and stay safe.
Cheers.